In basketball, just like in life, there are moments when the scoreboard doesn't tell the whole story. Moments when the real victory isn't seen by the crowd, but felt deep inside. This is what we're talking about today. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about getting even. It's about discipline. It's about strength. It's about staying locked in when chaos is trying to pull you off your path. Narcissists, they feed off weakness, off attention, off your need for validation. But when you've done the work, when you've trained your mind to stop reacting, to stop playing their game, that's when you've already won. Not loud, not flashy, quiet, precise, relentless. There's a certain peace that comes when they realize they can't reach you anymore. And that peace, that control, that's what we're chasing. That's Mamba mentality, not just on the court, in your life, in your relationships, and how you hold your ground under pressure. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 signs that you've completely defeated the narcissist. Not because you fought them harder, but because you leveled up so far beyond their reach, they stop mattering. When a narcissist realizes that your silence speaks louder than anything you've ever said, it marks a turning point they cannot control. Narcissists feed off engagement, any reaction, any emotion, any confrontation. It's their fuel. Whether you're angry, defensive, hurt, or trying to reason with them, it all serves one purpose. It keeps them relevant in your emotional world. That's why silence is such a powerful weapon. It denies them the very thing they crave most: your attention, your energy, your emotional presence. And when that silence is not just temporary, but a lifestyle shift, they begin to unravel. Silence is misunderstood. People think it's weak, that it means you've given up or you don't care. But when you choose silence as a response to manipulation, gaslighting, or provocation, what you're really doing is exercising emotional discipline. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about refusing to waste your time where there's no respect, no growth, no reciprocity. Silence becomes your boundary. It's the line that says, I've said everything I need to say, and now I'm done performing for your chaos. It forces the narcissist to sit alone with their own noise. In the past, they may have relied on your emotional outbursts to feel superior. They got a thrill from seeing you flustered, apologizing, explaining yourself. Your pain was their proof of power. But now, when you're quiet, when you give them no reaction, when you don't explain or justify or even acknowledge their antics, you strip them of that illusion. You break the feedback loop they've depended on for control. In this silence, more than any confrontation, makes them feel invisible, irrelevant, powerless. It's a reality check they weren't prepared for. You don't even have to block them to send this message, though sometimes that's necessary. It's the inner silence that matters most. The silence of your thoughts no longer revolving around them. The silence of your heart no longer hoping they'll change. The silence of your time and energy being invested elsewhere. It's not coldness, it's clarity. You're not playing games, you're done. Playing all together. You're living now with your peace intact, and your silence becomes the shield that protects it. The narcissist may test your silence. They might throw bait at you. Provocative texts, cryptic social media posts, guilt trips, sudden kindness, fake apologies. These are not attempts at reconciliation. They're attempts to pull you back into the performance. They want your reaction because that tells them they still matter to you. But when your silence holds calm, firm, and unwavering, they are forced to confront something they can't manipulate, the truth, that they no longer affect you. And that truth is devastating to their ego. Silence is not passive. It's active resistance. It's you taking control of your narrative. It's you choosing your peace over their drama. It's a reflection of inner strength and healing. You've learned that not every battle needs to be fought with words. Some victories are won by walking away and never looking back. Some of the strongest people don't shout. They simply stop explaining. And that's what drives the narcissist mad. They're left talking to an empty stage with no audience to manipulate, no emotions to twist. They may pretend not to care. They might act like your silence doesn't bother them. but that's just another performance. Behind the scenes, they're frustrated because your silence is a mirror showing them that their tactics have no effect anymore, that they don't have access to your emotional life, that you've evolved past needing their approval, validation, or recognition. And in the world of a narcissist, nothing is more terrifying than being irrelevant to someone they once controlled. This shift is internal before it's external. You stop answering their messages long after you stop thinking about them. You stop caring about what they think because you no longer believe their opinion defines your value. You stop reacting not out of fear, but because you've matured emotionally. You realize that not every insult deserves a response. Not every provocation deserves your peace. And not every person is worth your energy. This mindset is what truly defeats a narcissist. Not your anger, not your revenge, but your growth, your calm, your silence. Silence also gives you space to hear your own voice again. After months or years of being drowned out by their noise, you begin to reconnect with your intuition, your goals, your truth. And the more grounded you become in your own identity, the more impenetrable you become to their influence. You see through their patterns without getting caught in them. You can predict their moves without having to engage. Like you've become emotionally fluent in their manipulation and you choose not to dance to that tune anymore. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, just not in the narcissist's favor. While they scramble for new ways to get your attention, you're building your peace, creating your future, and investing in people and places that honor your growth. You're not silent because you're broken. You're silent because you finally healed to the point where noise doesn't move you anymore. And to the narcissist, that silence is the loudest, most unbearable truth they'll ever face. When a narcissist no longer has access to your emotions, it's like the lights go out on their stage. They've been performing for an audience that suddenly disappeared. The applause stops, the attention fades, and the emotional energy they once fed on vanishes. A narcissist doesn't seek love, they seek control, dominance, and constant emotional reaction. Your tears, your anger, your confusion, it was never just about the situation. It was about whether or not they could move you, shape your responses, and manipulate the moment to serve their ego. Once they lose that access, they lose the ability to shape your reality. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts with a shift when you begin recognizing that your emotions have been weaponized against you. You start to notice how every time you react, they twist it, they feed off it, and they find a way to make you feel like the problem. They don't want you balanced, they want you off center. Because when you're emotionally unstable, you're easier to mold, easier to bait, easier to break. But when you stop giving them emotional access, you reclaim your center of gravity. You stand in the middle of chaos and keep your composure, and that's when their power begins to crack. They'll test this new version of you. They'll poke at your soft spots, revisit old wounds, try to push your buttons the way they used to. But now, instead of breaking, you breathe, you observe, you respond if necessary without reacting. And in that moment, you've taken back everything. Because they don't know what to do when their tactics don't work anymore. They don't know how to navigate a version of you that no longer bleeds when they strike. You've stopped playing defense. You're simply not playing at all. Your emotions used to be a map they could read easily. They knew what made you cry, what made you rage, what made you apologize. They would use that information as leverage. They would pretend to be the victim, make you feel guilty, bait you into defending yourself. It was never about resolution. It was about maintaining control of the emotional dynamic. But when you go quiet inside, when you stop giving them those markers, they get lost. It's like taking the oxygen out of a room where fire once thrived. You don't need to be cold or cruel. You just need to be emotionally unavailable to their games. That doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop feeling for them. You no longer tie your peace to their moods, your worth to their validation, or your decisions to their reactions. They might throw tantrums, accuse you of being distant, say you've changed, and you have. Because now you understand that emotional access is a privilege, not a right. And if someone uses that access to harm, manipulate, or control, they don't deserve it. They may escalate, they might try to love bomb you again, apologize, suddenly act caring, but you've seen the cycle, you've felt the highs, followed by the devastating lows, and now even their praise doesn't sway you. You've emotionally disconnected from the illusion. You see their compliments as currency, spent only to buy control, and because you're no longer buying, the currency is worthless. Their charm doesn't touch you. Their insults don't wound you. You're simply neutral. And in that neutrality lies your power. Emotional detachment is not the same as being numb. It means you've learned to regulate your inner world regardless of what they throw at you. They can shout, lie, guilt trip, or ghost you, and still you remain centered. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but you've chosen not to let that hurt become a hook. You no longer dance in the drama. You process your emotions on your own terms, away from their manipulation. You've learned to be present with your feelings without handing them over to someone who doesn't handle them with care. They notice the shift. They notice when you don't explain yourself anymore, when you don't justify every boundary, when you don't take the bait. They see the lack of emotional response and interpret it as arrogance, coldness, indifference. But what they're really seeing is strength. And it terrifies them because it tells them they no longer influence your state of being. They no longer get to decide how you feel, how you think, or how you see yourself. That autonomy is what they fear most because it means the spell is broken. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer intimidate you, a massive crack forms in the mirror they've carefully constructed. The one where they are always powerful, always in control, always untouchable. That illusion only holds if you believe in it. But the moment you stop flinching, stop shrinking, stop responding with fear, that illusion collapses. Narcissists feed off the idea that you need their approval or that you fear their disapproval. They count on that internal pressure, that psychological grip they've been tightening since day one. But when you step out of that mental cage and stop reacting to their threats, criticism, or guilt trips, they are left scrambling for control they no longer have. There's a different energy that comes from someone who's no longer scared. It's calm, it's direct, it's unshakable. And narcissists hate that energy because they don't know how to move it. They know how to push buttons, but when the wires are cut, when the buttons no longer work, they're exposed. They realize that their favorite weapon, intimidation, has lost its power. They've trained you to doubt yourself, to second guess, to feel like you're always on the verge of doing something wrong. But when you finally recognize that their reactions aren't reflections of your worth, but symptoms of their control issues, you stop fearing their judgment. It's in the way you speak. You stop justifying yourself. You stop apologizing for having needs. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. That's when the narcissist starts to panic. Because your silence, your calm, your refusal to defend yourself, it's not weakness, it's power. The power of someone who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need to be liked, validated, or forgiven by someone who once tried to crush them emotionally. Narcissists rely on emotional submission. They want you to flinch when they raise their voice. They want you to bend when they disapprove. But when you don't, when you stand tall with your head high and your heart still open, but not open to them, that's when they realize the game has changed. They'll try to test your strength. They'll create conflict out of nowhere just to see if you'll fold. They'll accuse you of being difficult, cold, selfish, or cruel. They'll twist your confidence into arrogance, but now you don't take the bait. You've learned how to respond without reacting, how to stand your ground without turning the moment into a fight. You understand that your self-worth isn't tied to their version of you. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You're done performing for someone who never clapped unless it was to keep you dependent on their applause. Narcissists are fueled by superiority, but only if they can place someone beneath them. When you step out of that dynamic and refuse to play the lesser role, they're left with no sense of dominance. You're not arguing, not begging, not engaging in circular conversations meant to wear you down. You're clear, you're firm, You're done explaining. And that clarity cuts through their manipulation like a blade. You're not mean, but you're no longer afraid. And that's a language they've never learned to speak, because their entire identity was built on other people's fear and submission. They may act unbothered. They may pretend you never mattered. They may try to act like they're the one who distanced themselves, but deep down they feel it. They feel the shift. They know they don't live in your head anymore. They know their presence no longer makes your pulse spike or your stomach drop. And that realization is devastating to them, because they didn't just want your attention. They wanted your fear. They didn't just want to be admired. They wanted to be obeyed. And now they're just another voice, no louder than the rest, no longer above you. You've taught them without yelling, without pleading, that you are no longer a character in their story. You're the author of your own. And authors don't ask permission from the characters they've outgrown. When you walk away with your dignity intact and your peace undisturbed, the narcissist is left with the echoes of control that no longer exists. You become the one thing they hate most, a person who can't be moved by fear, a person who's no longer impressed by their mask, a person who walked through the fire and came out unburned because they stopped giving the flame their oxygen. The fear is gone, and with it goes the narcissist's grip. That's not just a loss to them, it's a collapse of their identity, because their sense of power depended on your insecurity. Now your presence is no longer a playground for their ego. It's a boundary, a wall, a mirror they don't like to look into, because it reflects their failure to break you. They realize they can't dominate you, can't destabilize you, can't confuse you into compliance anymore. You've made your peace more expensive than they can afford. When a narcissist sees that you're no longer emotionally available to them, they feel a level of rejection they can't comprehend or accept. You're no longer that person who gave them the benefit of the doubt every time, who softened their chaos with your understanding, who picked up the emotional pieces they shattered only to hand them more control. You've changed. You built a new version of yourself that no longer revolves around their approval or their presence. You've become emotionally untouchable to them, not because you're cold, but because you're aware. You've learned the pattern, the manipulation, the fake apologies, the temporary affection that always came with a price, and now you don't respond the way you used to. You don't react to their bait. You don't engage in the endless cycles of push and pull. You don't rush to fix what they break. You've detached, not with hate, but with clarity. And that clarity drives them insane, because the narcissist never truly bonded with you as a person. They bonded with the version of you that tolerated their behavior. That version is gone. You no longer need them to complete you. You're not waiting for their validation to feel good about who you are. That shift, that internal transformation is what makes them realize they've lost you for real. They'll test you. They'll try to resurrect the past. They'll bring up memories, inside jokes, or shared struggles to pull at your emotions. But what they find instead is silence, stillness, distance. And that silence screams louder than any confrontation. It tells them without words that they don't live in your emotional world anymore. You stop seeking closure. You stop needing explanations. You understand now that some people apologize with changed behavior, while others weaponize apologies to reset your boundaries. And you finally stop confusing the two. What destroys a narcissist is not anger or revenge, it's indifference. The moment you stop caring about how they see you, how they interpret your decisions, or whether they approve of your healing, you take back every ounce of power they ever held. You used to internalize their moods, their projections, their judgments. Now you observe them. You don't personalize their chaos. You see it for what it is, a strategy, not a reflection of your worth. That shift turns their tactics into noise, and nothing frustrates a narcissist more than being unable to provoke an emotional reaction. They're used to being the center of your emotional life. Even your pain, your frustration, your confusion, it all meant they were still inside your head, still influencing your thoughts. But when you emotionally shut the door, they no longer have access. You don't give them updates. You don't share your wins or your struggles. You don't look to them for comfort or connection. That detachment is foreign to them because in their world, everyone is either under their control or trying to be. But now you're not interested in either. Even when they try to fake vulnerability, admitting past mistakes or pretending to reflect, they do it with one goal, to reattach. But you don't bite the hook. You recognize the timing, the performance, the recycled phrases. You don't respond to crocodile tears. You don't fall for grand gestures. You see through the illusion, and you don't need to call it out. You just don't participate. That's what stings the most, because for the first time, they can't control your narrative. They can't twist your perception. You've stepped outside of their frame, and now they're the one left trying to guess what you'll do next. They may try to provoke you through others. They may smear your name, play the victim, or stir drama to get a reaction. But you remain grounded because you understand that people committed to misunderstanding you don't deserve your time. You've stopped defending yourself to those who are loyal to their lies. Your focus is shifted inward to your peace, your growth, your future. That energy is untouchable. It's powerful. And it terrifies the narcissist because it confirms what they feared all along. You've moved on without needing their permission. The person they once knew, the one who explained too much, apologized too often, tolerated too long, that person has evolved. And the narcissist can't keep up. You no longer share emotional currency with them. You don't invest in their highs or their lows. You don't care if they miss you, if they regret it, if they finally get it. You've stopped trying to win a game that was always rigged. You're not playing anymore, and more importantly, you're not watching from the sidelines either. You've walked away, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. That's what creates the rupture they can't repair.